All right, we're live again. Besties and bosses, I do not know what's going on, so I will figure this out with my team since this happened last week. I am now the common denominator here, so I'm thinking it's something changed with the setting. It's because I'm talking about politics, so Reddit doesn't like me. I don't know. It's something's going on here where I keep getting kicked off halfway through my live, and I haven't changed anything. So we will figure that out. If anybody has any insight, please let me know if this has happened to you. We might just need to stream through a different way or figure out another way to go live. But I am back. Sorry, because I know I had some of you live who were asking questions as well. But let me just make sure I can pull up this video so I can see your questions, and hopefully you'll see this as I'm going live for part 2. So where I left off, and then just for the sake of time here, I'll make sure I hop onto the other things. Where I left off is I was just talking about a big thing I see is that they've really done the work to get clear on their values. And what I mean by values, because I think values can be a confusing word, but what their priorities are, both in their business and personally outside their business. So they're really clear on what strategic decisions we want to make to support those business, those priorities and values, knowing that every decision in business is also going to have a trade-off. So they're never expecting something in their business to meet and fulfill every value, every need, every priority. But we are using those top priorities to help decipher what's most important to make those decisions around, and then what trade-offs are worth it and what trade-offs are not. And I think what's just important to see is that if I look across my client roster, if I have 3 different clients, they might have 3 different priorities, right? 3 different values in and outside their business, which is why they might have the same financial goals, but we are going to go about those in very, very different ways, not only because of their strengths and not only because of what they like, but also because of what they want their business to meet in terms of those priorities and what they want fulfilled in their personal life. I can't remember if I talked about this in the other recording, but what I was saying is I'll just use myself as an example, and I'll use one of my clients as an example. I know for me, for example, one of my top priorities in my business are my clients and is the quality of my coaching and having an offer and work that prioritizes my clients and their results pretty much more than anything. That has been the case from day one. But because I know that that is one of my top priorities and values, and I also know one of my top priorities and values outside of business is I want to do work that lights me up, feels really important to me. Like, that's just always been a top priority to me personally. And then I would say family is another one there, and then probably my health and fitness, right? So I'm making decisions based on that. So because of that, it makes it very easy for me to make a strategic decision around scaling an all one-on-one business model, even if it means I might not scale as quickly or as fast as, say, another business model, right? It makes that decision a no-brainer. Whereas if I wasn't clear on those values, it would make it very confusing, because I could scale faster with a mastermind. I could scale faster with a group program. I have a great course idea, right? I know how to scale that. I know how to do that. And it would make it very confusing to know what to choose, as opposed to it makes it very easy to choose, and also very easy to see that the trade-offs of, oh, that means that I'm, in air quotes, trading time for money because I'm on calls with clients. Oh, well, that trade-off's totally worth it because that client relationship to me is one of the top values I actually have. Or the trade-off of I might not make as much top-line revenue as another business as quickly is totally worth it to me because it is meeting the other priorities and values I want. And so I think I shared this maybe before we cut off. I have another client. She scaled to $1 million. One of her top values in her business was having an offer that was really in integrity and was able to touch a lot of lives and support them. One of her personal values was being done with work by about 2:30 p.m. so she could pick up her kid from school, right? So all of the strategic decisions we made in her business were based around those values in her business, right? That really determined what kind of business model, what kind of offer, what kind of marketing strategy we're choosing. But we also based those around her personal values, and we could see how the two of us are going to have 2 very, very, very different businesses and 2 very, very different paths, not only because our strengths and our work might be different, but really because our values and our priorities are different. And so I've really just seen the clients, again, who are creating those results and sustaining them, are really taking the time to get clear on those priorities, those values, and to be honest with themselves, and to know that they can change from time to time, so that they are building their business around that, so that it can support their business, the work they want to do, and the life they want to do, instead of the other way around. Hopefully that made sense, but let me know if you have any questions here. I'm just seeing the time because I have so many things that came up, and I want to make sure I speak to some of the other pieces. I'm gonna talk to one more here, and then I'm gonna go more to some of the mindset and strategic shifts. what I would say, one of the other things I think is just interesting when I looked at all of the clients I supported over the years, and look, there might be one or two that this wasn't the case, but I would say for pretty much every one of my clients who's hit the high multi 6, 7 figures, I don't think any of them have been super obsessed with hitting high multi 6 and 7 figures. It's not they didn't want it and they didn't have that goal. But what I think is really interesting is they have been so much more obsessed with the long game and so much more obsessed with their business and building a solid business and having an offer that really supports people and just like the sustainability of their business. And of course, like everybody needs to make a certain amount of money for that to be the case. So I think that changes when you're at a certain level of business. I do think when you're in like the growing phases of business, the money goals feel so much more important because you need to reach those to be able to pay yourself and team and taxes and all of those things. But I think this is really interesting because I think the narrative, especially in like the manifesting money space, is often like to reach those big goals, you need to like constantly be, I don't know, chanting, I'm a millionaire, and like constantly thinking about that. And I would say all of these clients believed that that was possible. It's not that they didn't think that that was possible or they weren't thinking about it, but I don't remember tons of sessions around like, how do I manifest $1 million? I remember tons of sessions around the business and their own mindset and just like what was coming up at different levels and like what was coming up at like with holding more success or making more money, or like maybe they're feeling not good enough in a certain area, or the strategy we need to tweak, but not so much around this like obsession around like needing to hit a certain goal. And I think that's just a really interesting thing. Like the obsession really was more around like the personal growth or the growth of their actual business and the support of their clients. And I would just say every single one of them has just been so much more focused on long-term success and gains, not short-term wins and money grabs. And it doesn't mean that they don't care about what's happening presently. And again, they don't live in a 3D reality world where they need to make a certain amount of money. But I think that's just really important to know. Like I'm thinking about one client in particular, because she was really willing to temporarily sacrifice some time and money to focus on a strategy, that's what set her up to scale. And she was just so willing to do that. And I think if she had just been so focused on like, what's the money I'm making next month so I can brag online, or what's the money I'm making next month, I don't know that she would have scaled in the way she did. And so I think that's just maybe not the thing we always want to hear, but it's just something I've seen really, really to be true across those clients. They really are just, I talk about like treating your business like a business and thinking like a CEO. They really and truly are leaning in to learn how to think more and more like a CEO and treat their business like a business, which is so much more of that long-term thinking and not just like that month to month, like what am I making next month? Not to say that isn't important, like we don't have to think about that, but just in terms of the visioning and the planning and how they're setting themselves up. Yeah, you found me again. Thank you. Alyssa, does anybody watching now or the replays, anybody know what's going on with Facebook? I'm assuming it's something I'm doing. I do not know why we keep losing things, but right now I see the recording dot going. So I'm going to pay more attention so I don't talk to myself for half an hour like I did last week. Make sure that we're recording. Okay, let's talk about a couple other things. I'm going to skip through. I made a very long list and we're not going to have time for all of them. Let's see. Okay, so I think what I would say here, which one do I have to talk about? Let's actually, because we've been talking quite a bit about being ruthless, about time and well, we'll talk about this a little bit. I think this piggybacks on the priorities and values a little bit. All of these clients, what I have just really seen as they've done the work in coaching to really get ruthless about, again, those priorities and to know where their time and their focus is going, especially if they want to create those results working fewer hours, because I know for a lot of my clients, they are creating these results working part-time or fewer hours, and they want that, or they're starting a second business, and so they have less time available in their business. And so what I've just seen is how much then a priority that the conversations and coaching come around. How do we get really, really ruthless with where we're spending time with our team, how we're being efficient with strategies, so we're not doing all of the things, right? I talk a lot about doing less better, but really leaning into using coaching time to get clear on that. Because when you have, let's say you want to hit certain results and you've got 15, 20 hours per week, you have to be so much more ruthless with where you're spending that time and energy. I have a couple of clients who are mamas, Alyssa, I know you could probably speak to this. And I think in some ways, the fact that their family is such a priority and they know that they want to be in the business, like you'd think that would be a hindrance, but I think sometimes it makes for such a great CEO and business owner because there's just that much more a need to be really clear on what matters and what doesn't matter in business and what to focus on and what doesn't focus on and what to give an F about and what not to give an F about. And so I would say for these clients, I've just seen how they've just gotten so much more clear on that, or use coaching time to get clear on that, and notice when they start to get wrapped up around the anxiety or the giving more F's than you need to around something, they bring it to coaching so they can let that go because they know they can't waste time spinning out all week long when you only have a limited amount of time of business hours to move forward. And so, I mean, I think that almost sounds obvious, but what I think we don't realize sometimes, we talk about mindset. I think we sometimes think mindset is just like chanting, I'm going to be a millionaire. And I'm not hating on affirmations. I love affirmations as well. But so much of the mindset work I'm doing with clients is more, how are we getting back to neutral? How are we not spending all of your working hours spinning out? How are we getting out of the anxiety? How are we getting out of the comparisonitis? How are we getting out of creating problems that don't exist and getting really clear from a CEO mindset on what actually matters to move the needle forward? I would say the other thing is, and this is so not sexy, but it is just so true, they have just gotten so fierce at working on their boundaries and learning how to set them and hold them. And I think we all get what that means, but I think as you get to a higher level in business, I think you just don't realize how absolutely important that is. And, look, with more success comes more opportunities, more people who want your attention, more people in your audience who have requests from you, more people who want to work with you, more people in programs. There's a lot of things that seem like they are good opportunities and things that need your attention, or that maybe at one point you needed to give your attention to. And especially for my people who are high achievers, who maybe are a little bit people pleasing, who are highly empathetic, who don't want to let people down. This is where you can become the bottleneck in your business. And so learning how to prioritize and how to delegate and or how to start to set boundaries or say no to things, even things that maybe at one point in your business really served you, has just been a huge part of the work I've seen with these clients, is that they're really, really willing to lean into. And it's not the fun stuff, right? We all want to what we want. I don't know, this is really I want to go to my coach and just be let's work on a new offer and a new shiny strategy, and so I can get a bunch of dopamine hits when my next post goes viral. I don't know. I'm being a little sarcastic. That's what we all, what we don't really want is here's the crunchy thing that's coming up for me around the boundary I have to set, or here's the hard conversation I have to have with a team member, or here's the hard conversation I have to have with a client, or here's the hard thing that I really want to do, but I'm going to have to say no to, because if I say yes to this, then I can't honor these other commitments and priorities in my business. That's just not the stuff that any of us are that's why we got into business for. And those are the conversations I'm just really and truly seeing, I'm just seeing those clients being willing to have. So I think that's just important to name. I would say similarly, again, I talked about this on Instagram yesterday a little bit. This is something I'm currently going through. I'm having this will either be my biggest month in business ever, or one of my bigger months definitely in the last year, cash months, which is great. And I've noticed a couple of things to be true around that. So I'll use myself as an example. I know I'm using clients as an example, but I think this is just helpful to paint what I'm supporting clients with at this level. One, not a lot changes in my business from day to day when I'm making more money. And it just helps me to see how important the priorities and values I have are when not a lot changes, when I'm making more money than I was last month, for example. And if I make less money next month, that's not going to make a huge difference. And so what I would say is, for my clients at this level, they've gotten out of that mentality of a little bit more money, a little bit less money. These natural ebbs and flows in business are going to make these huge changes for how they feel, for their business, for their personal life. But again, then because of that, they do know what actually matters. What actually feels good to me is then doing the work I love, working with the clients I love, having the free time to go to the gym tonight or to go spend time with my husband, right? So that kind of goes back to the priorities piece we were talking about. So I would say there is that element of learning those ebbs and flows don't make as much as a difference as we think they do before we hit them. But the other piece that I work on with clients quite a bit, and this is something I was sharing on Instagram just in full transparency, whenever I have hit a new milestone or a higher month, or a higher month in a while, it is just fascinating to me, for me, how much that kicks up Gay Hendricks calls it the upper limit, but just how uncomfortable it can be in our nervous system. And so while not a lot changes, I know for me, I just find it really interesting how my brain, and this is the case for many of my clients, and this is the work I am doing so much with clients at this level, is to catch this, and I give them so much credit for being willing to have these conversations, how much my brain, how much their brain gets really uncomfortable with more and more success and things feeling good and things feeling easy, and how dysregulating that can be for many of us, and how much our brain then wants to find a problem that isn't there to fix and to solve for, and how much we want to find a way to essentially self-sabotage our way back to homeostasis, right? If we think about, I know I've talked about this before, but it feels so important. Gay Hendricks talks, for those of you who don't know, Gay Hendricks wrote The Big Leap, and he talks about this concept of upper limiting, which is essentially we all have a certain threshold of success, of how good things can be, whether that's in our marriage, with our family, with our health, with our fitness, with our finances, with our work, with our business, right? And once we pass that threshold, because it is not our homeostasis and what feels normal in our nervous system, it feels very dysregulating. This is not the way he teaches it, this is the way I interpret it. So what happens is, to our nervous system, that just then feels unfamiliar and unsafe. And so our brain will do everything it can in its power to do something to bring us back to what actually feels like normal, familiar. And so when we're creating more and more success, more visibility, having more money, holding more clients, I have seen for every single one of my clients, it is a different level, but all of them hit a certain level where suddenly it is like, oh, this is too much for my system. And that is when, for I think pretty much everyone, right, we start to want to do these things where it's like, oh, here's this thing I need to go fix. Here's this way I want to fuck things up, essentially. And we don't realize it, right? When we're in that place, we think we're being a really great business owner, and we're spotting the problem that needs to be fixed. We're spotting the thing that needs to be done. Some of my clients will have other sabotaging patterns, right? We all have different things we do. Some of them will pick fights with loved ones. Some of them, I used to always pick a fight with my husband. I've gotten very good at not doing that anymore, noticing that. But what I notice in myself now is I want to find stuff to tinker with in my business that does not need to be fixed. I've got an email funnel that's converting. I don't know, it's like our ads convert like 20 to 22x or something like that. And I find myself where I'm like, oh, well, there must be something wrong with that. Like, let me go tinker with that, which will probably just break that funnel, because there's pretty much nothing I could do to have a higher return than that. And I'm reflecting this here is, I know that, so I can catch myself in that. But it is very easy for us to do and very easy for our brains to do. That's what I notice with a lot of my clients, and a lot of them have just gotten better and better at noticing when these things are coming up, to bring them to coaching, to work through and to catch them and to shift through them, instead of every uncomfortable thought, every uncomfortable feeling, taking that to mean this is true, there's actually a problem, and immediately acting on it. And so that ability to catch what's going on and to bring it to coaching, but also that ability to have that time gap of like, I'm feeling something, I'm making this feeling mean something, checking in with, is that real or is that a story? And before you act on it, I'd say they've just gotten better and better and better at doing that work. It's not that the feeling goes away. It's not that they don't ever have like that want to like create a problem that doesn't exist. They've just gotten better at checking in for support, or that time gap before they go and take action on it. And that time gap there, I would say like that is one of the biggest things and gifts you can give yourself. If you want a little cheat sheet on that, hi Laura, happy business anniversary, just stopped in and happy to get to see you twice today, love you. Melissa says it should be required reading. Yes, for Gay Hendricks, I agree, the Big Leap should be required reading. I've sent it to so many clients. What I would say for all of you, this is just helpful, what I think about all of these clients, and when I think about the work I've done myself through this, if that's helpful to hear, I think just sort of like an easy way to check in with yourself, like on, is this an upper limit, or even is this a thought I should be taking action on? If you're feeling any type of anxiety or massive urgency, I said this to one of my clients, I would just assume then whatever action your brain is telling you to take is a lie and something you want to pause on. Unless you are literally being chased by a tiger or a bear, or there is literally an immediate threat in front of you. But if there is an immediate threat in front of you, you won't have time to think about it. You will just immediately respond and act, right? If there's a bear running after me, I'm not thinking, should I run away from this bear? My ass is already running. If, there's traffic coming at me, if, someone's in my face, if there is something that is an actual real threat to my well-being, it is just so automatic that we have that response. If we are feeling like there is a threat and our nervous system is getting kicked up, and we're feeling that need where I need to jump on and do this thing now or else, that is almost always, I would say like 98% of the time in your business, that means that is your anxiety stress response. That is an upper limit, right? That's your brain looking for a problem that doesn't exist. That is an invitation to pause and to get clear first on, is this an actual problem? And is this something that would still be a solution, would still require action 24 hours from now? And so I think I would just always notice, like, am I feeling like this is super urgent, super scary, super bad? Like, if I don't fix this, something bad is going to happen. That's almost always a sign to pause, if that's helpful. I mean, again, I'm not coaching everyone individually, but if that's just like a general way to think about it, I think that can be helpful. And just knowing even that upper limiting is a thing. What I coach a lot of clients around, what I would just invite everybody to start thinking about is, what I've noticed for all of these clients is we all tend to have our own flavors of, I don't even think it's called, I don't love the term self-sabotage. I think of it more as self-protection. We all have our own flavors of self-protection and mechanisms that we use to try to stay safe that maybe just aren't actually the things that really get us what we want. I talk about how often our brain is wired for safety and survival, not for success. And so I would think about that. We all just have our own survival safety mechanisms that don't usually help us to get success. And so the more you can learn what are your favorite ways to self-defend, to self-protect, to try to create safety, to try to create survival that maybe aren't the most productive for your success, the more you can catch when you might be in a pattern of upper limiting, I think is a healthier way to say it than self-sabotage, because it's not even self-sabotage if we think about it. It's your nervous system, your brain trying to bring you back to what feels familiar and safe. And then the other piece here, since apparently I'm turning this into this is present for me, so we'll just, I share this on Instagram as well. But I always like to go back to Gay Hendricks' question as well, which is, when I notice that, I like to stop and ask myself, what good is trying to get in right now? That's Gay Hendricks' question. The question I ask, this is my question that I really like to play with, is what feeling is trying to get in right now? And what essentially like good feeling is trying to get in right now. And what I like to do, what I would just invite all of you to do, this is one of the best things you can do if you want to scale to higher levels and to play with, is to practice sitting in uncomfortable feelings. And when we think about that, we usually think that means the uncomfortable feeling of rejection or taking a risk or putting ourselves out there or getting more visible. And yes, that is that, or those uncomfortable conversations. Yes, that's absolutely true. But what I think we forget is that for most of us, really good things and things feeling really easy and lots of success and more money and more clients is wildly uncomfortable, right? Feeling really good isn't actually, it's weird, but it's like an uncomfortable feeling for a lot of us at a certain level, because for a lot of us, that is unfamiliar, and it feels like, oh my gosh, the bottom could fall out. This could go away. I'm not fixing something. I'm not solving something. I haven't worked hard enough to prove that I've earned this. I haven't done enough to prove that, this gets to stay here. Fill in all of the noise we can do. So just remember, that's also an uncomfortable feeling to practice sitting in, which is why I like the celebration tool that I offered to you all, why I like to practice when I notice these things coming up. I'm like, what feeling? Like, what good is here that I am basically not allowing myself to sit in? Can I practice just sitting in the good and the uncomfortable good feeling? Can I titrate, right? Because the more we titrate means just like a little bit more at a time. Can I expand my capacity to sit in uncomfortable feelings? Negative and positive and air quotes, right? The good stuff and the bad stuff. The more I can do that on either side, the more I can feel good and neutral when I'm having a challenging conversation with someone, right? And sitting with them in their heart on a coaching call, the more I can support them to success. The more I can sit in the uncomfortable feeling of acknowledging a compliment from a client or acknowledging how good things are in my business. I changed my word this year to acknowledgement, by the way, for this reason, because it is that fucking hard for me, right? The more that I allow myself to expand my success, this is literally the work I would say all my clients at that level are doing to some degree. And so if that's just helpful to hear. Let's see, where are we at with time? And are there, okay, I don't see any questions. Oh, there's so many things I want to share. Maybe we need to do a part 2 of this. I'm going to share one more thing here, and then I'm just going to talk a little bit about working with clients to make more money than me, because I do know people have that question, and I think that's important to talk about for a second. I'm going to say the last thing here that I would just offer is, like there's so many things. I would say all of these clients who have scaled to a higher level, I think they're just a little bit more willing to take calculated, smart risks, and they see risks as testing. And what I mean by this, and I would also say they also all are just okay with acknowledging they want success and want to make money. And I feel like those things don't fit in the same park. I think there's almost this way, because I've been talking a lot about like caring so much about your clients and the work, which is like, I care about, like, I have built this business around my clients. Like, that is the number one thing that matters to me in my business. Like, number one, hands down thing. I hired someone new on my team. And I was like, the reason I'm hiring you is because I care about my clients and making sure they feel supported and making sure I have the brain space to fully support them. Like, that is the number one thing. I would secretly do this work for free. And I'm also unapologetic in the fact that I also really care about success and making money, and that both can be true at the same time. And so I think there is this way in which allowing yourself to acknowledge like what matters and your values, but also acknowledging that you want success and money, and that that's okay, and that you get to have that, and like that is yours. I would say all of those clients have that. But then with that, I think they understand the concept that, look, it's just the person in business who takes the biggest risk who makes the most. Like, it's the same in the stock market. But if we think about, I think Alex Hormozy actually talks about this. If we think about why you could be the most skilled person in the world, but if you get hired by a company to build something out in their business versus being the person who's running that business, you're always just going to make less money, even if you literally, like, I was talking about this with one of my clients who had to hire someone who doesn't get it. Even if you're like hired to build out the infrastructure for this business that is making multiple $1 million, you might only ever make six figures or multi six figures, and that might not feel fair, even though the company is making multi millions. But the reason for that is the amount of money you make is equal to the amount of risk you are taking and putting on the line. When you are a business owner, right, the business owner who has hired this person is paying this person and is doing the marketing, is doing all of the things, they are absorbing the most risk, which is why they make the most money in the business, not necessarily the person who's like creating or developing something, which I know just feels so unfair to all of us. But as business owners, I think that's really important for us to understand. What that doesn't mean is you have to go do a bunch of stupid, risky things, but it does mean, and what I've just seen for all of my clients at a higher level, they just understand that that is part of the game, and they're just a little bit more willing to take smart, calculated risks and to see that as a test. So they don't see it as a risk, they see it as being willing to test something, but just knowing that sometimes they have to put some money on the line, sometimes they have to be willing to lose some money, sometimes they have to fail publicly, sometimes they have to learn in front of people, sometimes they have to test an offer and it doesn't work, right? Sometimes they have to do things that in our air quotes are risky because there's not a guarantee, but the more they're willing to do that strategically, right, it doesn't even have to mean that they fail or have bad things happen. The larger the degree to that, the bigger the degree to return on the other side. I don't know if ads are the best example of this, but I'm just because I've been playing with them this year and I'm supporting a lot of clients with those. I think about them in that way, and that it's like ads are pretty much like ads work. It's a guaranteed thing, but there is an inherent risk with that involved, and it's sort of like in some way the person who's willing to like throw the most money at ads and like is willing to risk like playing that game the biggest. Also, if they have a good funnel and a good offer, and it's set up strategically in the back end to pay them back, can also set up to have the biggest reward, right? Like if I look at one of the clients I was supporting who was at about the $2 million mark, I did not coach them to they were already at 2 million when they hired me, just for full transparency there, because I don't want to misclaim results or outcomes or anything like that. But that's just someone who I just really saw was just so much more willing to put money on the line with ads, for example, right? And so the results on the other side match that, but also just really willing to put money and time on the line in terms of like hiring team members, investing in things, some that worked, some that didn't, and just seeing that as part of the game of business. And so this isn't to say go spend a bunch of money, go do stupid things, go be risky. These were all smart, calculated, strategic decisions based on priorities and values that were essentially tests, just meaning there wasn't a guarantee on the other side, but to somebody else it would feel very risky. And so I've just seen that as something that all of the clients at that level, they're just more willing to lean into that. And I've just seen that for myself over the 9 years in business. That is something I've just stretched more and more. And the more I stretch that, the more I'm able to stretch my success on the other side. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to share just for a couple minutes here, just because this live stream got completely disjointed with me losing the connection, having a part two, but also because I got a little excited, y'all. I always want to share a little bit too much, so I've got like 75 bullet points here that we're never going to cover. Let's just talk a little bit about the truth about how I feel knowing, I was just going to share the mindset shift that separates businesses that plateau from those that scale past 100K, 500K, and a million. I will share that quickly, and then I'm going to talk about just working with clients to make more than me. I will say that we already talked about these, but just so that we can connect the dots here. What I would just remember is not every business is designed to scale to $1 million. And I think that's just really important to understand. And so one of the big shifts my clients make if they want to scale to that level is we have to fundamentally, they're not just trying to manifest $1 million. Not that you can't manifest $1 million, but if you want to manifest that through your business, we need to have an infrastructure that is set up and designed to make $1 million and to hold $1 million and to serve $1 million worth of value. I always say it needs to be like 10 times more than that. And so one of the things they're doing so they don't plateau is that we are fundamentally and strategically looking at, do they have a scalable offer, and do they have a system and strategy behind them that supports that to scale? And sometimes that means slowing down to speed up, which nobody wants to hear. Just this is one of my clients. I think you're going to have to let go of a client or two and let go of a little bit of money so you have the time so that we can build this infrastructure if you want these long-term scalable goals. And so I think it's just really important. Like, that is one of the truths that I have just seen for every client that nobody wants to talk about for some reason in our online space. But like, there is just like a kind of like a math to this and a strategy to this and to what is required for a business at a certain level. And so we need to make sure those things are there. And if not, we sometimes have to carve out the time and the space to put that into place. And that, like, having a highly converting funnel usually takes 6 months to a year. Like, so they're just aware of those things, but also taking the time to put that into place, or just really honest with the fact that they don't want $1 million business and they want to, because of the trade-offs, and they want a 250K per year business. And that's great because they're making the top line revenue and taking home more, and they're not, losing a bunch to expenses, but then being okay with that and not, I think it's just so important. So you don't make yourself crazy in business. And I would say for every client at a higher level, they're just really clear on that and what their path is to scale, or that they're okay with the business they have and what their path is to maintain. And then they are really focused on continuing excellent delivery for their offer and continuing to refine that, and then always focused on their marketing and their pipeline. And I would say that is like those two pieces. Even if you want to plateau and sustain, like to sustain and scale in 2025 and a half, there's not a single client I have at the multi 6-7 figure level who isn't focused on client delivery, who isn't focused on team, I would say, and who isn't focused on continually refining messaging, marketing, and staying up to date with that and keeping their pipeline full. Like, not a single client. And I think we just think that isn't a case, like, not a single client. Okay. Now let's talk. I'm like trying to cram too much in this live stream, y'all. I appreciate you. Laura says love and resonate with the 75 bullets, LOL, and definitely voting for a part 2. Okay, we'll do a part 2 if y'all are wanting that. Melissa says yes, and I always want to hear the rest of what's in your brain. I love you all. Thank you for wanting to hear this. I'm glad to know it's also valuable. Maybe we will do a part 2 in a couple of weeks. Okay, the last thing I did want to touch on today, though, because I think this is just relevant for so many of you with whatever stage of business you're at. From day one in my business, I have had clients who make far, far, far more money than me. I supported my first client to scale from about 10K months to 115K months, and ultimately she had $1 million a year. And I was making, at that time, about 800 to maybe 3,000 max per month, and I was charging her $100 per session. And I say that for a lot of reasons, because that has been the case my whole business, right? I charge significantly less than a lot of other coaches in our space for multiple reasons. That's not the conversation we need to have today. I also have a revenue sharing model. And I've always had clients at a good portion of my roster who make more money than me. And I think with that, it brings up a lot of questions for people. And I think this is important for you because you might be working with clients who make more money than you, or think that you can't work with clients that make more money than you, because I think a lot of the narrative in our space is unless you've created the result, you can't support someone to that result. And I think that is just inherently false. I don't need to make $1 million per year in my business to support a client to $1 million per year in my business. If that were the case, think of all the clients I wouldn't have allowed myself to work with and the work we couldn't have done. I mean, that would have just been such a shame. But what is true is I need to know how to support someone to those results, right? I need to know that I'm an excellent coach and that I understand business. And what I think about with coaching and what I think about for any of us, maybe you're an OBM, maybe you're a designer, maybe you're a copywriter. Do you know how to work with someone who is making more money than you and not pedestal them and not to make it seem like they suddenly are better than you in air quotes, and are you solid enough in your work and what someone is hiring you for and the problem you're being hired to solve and the result you're being hired to help someone achieve, to be able to stand in that and to support someone to get that. That's what actually matters. And so I've known from day one with any client I've worked with, I only work with clients who are fit, right? Like the client who, I mean, I think there's also something to be said for, I was also willing to get, I was a brand new coach, so I charged $100 per session. So I think that also made it easier for her to hire me and trust me. But she still had to trust me, right? Like that client still had to trust me, to trust the coaching to be able to get those results. And I think the reason for that is I just really trust myself as a coach, and I really trust myself to show up. And I know business, and I know more than anything, I know how to get to know a person, their brain, their business, their values, what works for them, how to pull that out of them, and how to apply that to their business and to strategy. And I also know I'm really good at noticing people's bullshit, said with love, right? And what's getting them in their own way and how to coach them around that. And I know that when we have those ingredients, when we know what's right for you, when I know how to pull out your greatness, when I know the business model you want to have, the strategy you want to have, right? If I understand business and I know how to put those pieces into place, can't guarantee results, right? But those are the ingredients required for success and big results. And if we know how to spot what's getting you in your own way and how to shift that and to move through that, right, then we have everything we kind of need for success. And so I say just for all of you, whatever you're working on, if you work with clients who are in air quotes more successful or make more money than you, I wouldn't see that as like you can't help someone to do that. I mean, I wouldn't lie and claim results you've never helped anyone to achieve. I think that's a different conversation. But I think the piece there is really understanding what is your work about and do you know how to do that, and is that relevant for someone who's making more money than you? And in terms of how I think about it, because I think sometimes people wonder like, doesn't that bother you, or does it bother you that that client only paid you $100 a session, or that you have clients who make that much money and aren't in revenue share or whatever the thing is? And I cannot stress this enough, and maybe this is like bad money mindset, but I don't think it is at all. I could not be more thrilled when my clients make more money than me. I'm not kidding when I say I built this business around coaching and around my clients. Like, that is why I built this business. And I think that's actually important to hear, because I built this business around my clients because I want to coach them to their success. So if they have more success and make more money than me, that is such a joy and a thrill, because that means I am doing my work the way I intend to. And I think that's just such a helpful thing to remember for all of us, whatever it is we do. If you're a copywriter, for example, and your client blows up because of your copywriting, isn't that the whole reason you became a copywriter and did the business? And if not, I think maybe that's just something to be curious about. The other thing I will just say, and just what comes up for me, and I think this is just helpful to bring a full circle with our conversation, because I'm supporting my clients to find their path and their way to make more money, if they make more money than me, it's because that's what's right for them and their business model and their path. And so there's no part of me that's like in competition with a client or in comparison, because I'm so clear on my path. I'm so in love with my business and my life and the money I make. I'm not like, well, why are they making more than me? Or it's the same with peers in the online space. I'm like, good for them. That's amazing. Also, I don't want that business model. Also, I don't like those values trade-offs don't feel good for me. This business model, these value trade-offs feel good for me. And so that I think just makes it really easy, because I'm not interested in someone else's path. I'm interested in finding the right path for them, just like I'm not interested in them living into my path. And so I reflect that here, because I think it just brings us back to the conversation we had at the very beginning. When I look at my clients who are making and having the biggest results, they are the ones who are the most clear on their path, what's right for them, and really trusting and knowing they get to make that work for them. They get to have the results from that. They get to make, like, they are going to make money from that, as opposed to looking outside themselves and thinking someone else, like the grass is greener, someone else has the secret. And I think kind of in reverse, after 9 years, I think that's just the biggest gift I've given myself, and one of the things that supported me the most. And so maybe that's just a nice place to put it, like, to kind of end the conversation here, and just something I would offer for all of you. I know in our space, it is just so easy to, like, the grass always looks greener. Another business model looks like it'll make you more money. This strategy looks like it'll be less time. This person looks like they have a better life, whatever. It's just really easy to think there's always something better and shinier. And what I have just seen over and over and over and over again after over 5,000 coaching sessions is the grass is green where you water it, right? The grass is green where you pick, this is the lawn you want, and you water it. And you could just look at like everybody else's grass and lawn and be like, that is a beautiful grass and lawn, but also I'm allergic to those flowers. So like, I will just appreciate from afar, but just keep watering my grass. It sounds so fucking cheesy and cliche, but I just cannot stress enough how, like, if there was a secret, that is the secret of all secrets. Alyssa says, yes, you are. I don't know what that was to Alyssa, but I'm just going to say thank you. All right, y'all. I'm going to wrap this up because now we've had quite a long live stream today, but we'll do another part 2 if enough of you want that. If any of you want that celebration, it's from 9 years ago, so you will hear 9 years ago Kim. Mini course and the journaling questions I used today, just drop me a message here or DM me, reach out to me if you're on my email list, and I will get that over to you. Thank you again for being here. If you are interested in working with me and having one-on-one coaching support, I believe I should have a spot opening up in, what month are we in? March? In April. Oh my gosh, in April. So I will drop a link below, and if nothing else, we should have a strategy intensive opening up somewhat soon. So I'll drop a link for a free coaching discovery call below. I've lost my words, y'all. I would love to connect with you. It would be a joy to support you to finding your path to success and those sustainable and consistent 10K to 115K months. All right, I love you all. And Alyssa says, yes, you're good at those 2 things with your clients. So thank you. I appreciate you, Alyssa. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you all so much. This is what I wanted to say. This was my note on my page. I did not want to forget. Big part of my 9 years has been all of you and being in this. I haven't had this group for 9 years. I probably had it for 6 or 7, but it has been getting to share this work that I love so much with all of you. I do not take it for granted. There are so many people online, so many people you could spend an hour with every week, and it just means the world to me that I have this space to share my thoughts, my experiences, my expertise, that you all come here, that we get to have this community, that I get to hear your expertise and learn from all of you as well and be in community with you. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of my 9 years. Yes, my clients are the reason I do my business, but all of you are also the reason I do this work. So just thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you all and appreciate you. All right, now we will actually end this, and I will figure out what is going on with our technology. So hopefully next week we just have one conversation and not a disjointed one. Bye, y'all.